trying to take the not so sexy single-use products in the world and invent them to completely just disappear.
Like other co-founders, we all left Google to co-found Quilt.
Our first product is actually a fully 100% mycelium-based product.
I realized that if you work on what you truly believe to be the biggest problem facing the next generation of humans, the next generation after that, you could make that level of commitment because you can't fail.
There were many times when our team was like, Julia, this actually might not be possible.
Pickup trucks don't really work in hard to reach areas. New category of electric vehicles. A crew cab pickup truck packaged into the footprint of the two-door Mini Cooper.
This is a 100% bio-based, mostly seaweed-based pellet that melts and flows in traditional plastic infrastructure.
We broke the record for being the most efficient e-pump ever made.
The battery side, with the battery pack that's 50% more space efficient than Tesla's battery pack. We can optimize the front of the vehicle entirely for frontal crash impact.
We need to make the future so desirable that it becomes inevitable.
So I hope you're ready for this bunch. It's even just our prep call was incredible. But before we do that, I know it's almost summer here in San Francisco. It looks lovely. So I want you just to project yourself. It's a Saturday afternoon and you're planning on going to a festival. But you're sitting in your room and you know it's perfect temperature because you can adjust the temperature the way you want in each of your room. And hey, you're going out. So maybe you've ordered an outfit. It's very cute. It's for tonight. And it comes in this beautiful packaging made of seaweed, so you don't have to do anything. You're just going to drop it in your compost. Get ready. You live in San Francisco, busy city, but hey, you're going with friends, and maybe you want a blanket because it's going to be a long night out, and maybe you want some chairs, but what's cool is you have a mini truck, and you can park it in front of you because it's not bigger than a Mini Cooper. Isn't that cool? So off you go to your festival, but it's loud, right? It's very loud at festivals. But the good news is there's a big green vending machine here. You can just get earplugs, right? They're made from mycelium, so they're just not going to hurt the earth. They're not going to leave a trace. We heard how bad this plastic can be. That's not the case. So didn't have the best day ever. These 4 people make it happen. And again, that's why I was so excited about making this whole day about desirable solution, because I think it's just incredible. When minds and people who are passionate, just like Ray mentioned, like you need to fall in love with the problem. They all fall in love with their problem and dedicating their energy, their creativity. So thank you all for being here today. I'm just going to do a quick slide to introduce you. So because we're talking design and solution, I figure you don't want to hear from me and my questions first. I wanted each of them to walk you through the little stories of their products. So I know you can experience many of them here in the showcase. As we say, we'll track the Telo Trucks, so you can see that. But I also wanted them to tell me a bit of the process. So, Lauryn, please, if you want to introduce yourself and then walk us through a few slides.
That was a beautiful, I was going to say future, but actually that could be present day. So, yes. All right. I'm Lauryn, founder and CEO of a company called Gob. And I'm in the business of reinventing wearable wellness. Another way of saying this is I'm trying to take the not so sexy single-use products in the world and invent them to completely just disappear, as they should. So the first frontier that we're entering as a company is hearing protection, because as some of you may or may not know, once your hearing is damaged, you actually cannot reverse it. And I think about this a lot because I'm actually engaged to someone in a hardcore band. So a biomaterial professor, industrial designer, marrying someone in a hardcore band, you could see how earplugs might be needed. And so our first product is actually a fully 100% mycelium-based product. It is as compostable as a piece of fruit. It has absolutely no additives, and it's grown on a farm. So as you could see, if you look at this through the lens of single-use products, you could see how we can grow the future. So I'm just going to flip through these really fast. I have way too many slides as usual, but as mentioned, our product is grown, not manufactured. It's actually grown here in North America in upstate New York by our partners at Ecovative. And so how Gob is growing as a business is actually by taking these brilliant minds in the biomaterial spaces like Julia at Sway and turning them into hyper-functional products. So a lot of these biomaterials have been stuck in the space of luxury goods and such, and I am trying to find hyper-functional use cases for these materials and repetitive use products. So again, just to really, this is not greenwashing. I call it no BS sustainability. It's not regenerative. Why do it at all? It's the way that I look at it for single use. For those of you in the audience who are like, why earplugs? Like, what? That's such a weird product to start with. Well, it's because no one was innovating in the space. And when you look at hearing protection, it ranges from, you could think about defense, right? You could think about occupational uses, music festivals, sleep, parenting, right? Use cases are endless. And yes, parents, I spoke to a few here already who are like, oh yeah, my children scream, I need them. Foam is the biggest offender. So no one had innovated in that space. They're ubiquitous. You're all going to walk down the street and see some on the sidewalk when you leave here today. So that's why. This is just a great slide showing actually some folks from Sound Future, who Zoe represents. They're one of our partners. This just goes to show that we have folks from the audiology space, the music space, and even Billie Eilish and her team brought our product on tour and road tested it. So tried and true. Last thing is just showing that we're expanding right now into other products. So if you could imagine a world in which every single use product that we have could just fully disappear. Imagine flushable condoms. We don't need to see those on the streets. Especially here in San Francisco, they're everywhere. You can imagine femcare that doesn't have toxic chemicals. You could imagine so on and so forth. So yeah, a thing we're going to talk about today as a group is especially storytelling. It's really important as a company like this to not only tell a sustainability story, but to tell a larger cultural story. So that's what the God brand is trying to do. So I hope I kept that short and sweet.
Hello, my name is Paul. I am the CEO at Quilt, and I'm the one on the left. My other co-founders, we all left Google to co-found Quilt about not quite 3 years ago. We all had great jobs there, so I asked, like, why? Why do we do that? It's because we felt like we had a brief window to create a kind of once in a lifetime opportunity to help accelerate decarbonization. And I was looking for something I'd founded companies in the past, and I wanted something I commit decades to. And I realized that if you work on what you truly believe to be the biggest problem facing the next generation of humans, the next generation after that, you can make that level of commitment because you can't fail. If the company doesn't work, you still know that you spent time on something worthwhile. And if you succeed, you help solve the biggest problem facing humanity. And what more could you want? So we felt like that was the thing that got us out of the cozy bosom of Google. And here we go. Okay, so heat pumping. How many here know what a heat pump is? Oh, I love Climate Week. This is great. Okay, so I know how to explain it. They sound like they're magic. But the point is, if you look at any roadmap of how we're going to decarbonize homes, how we're going to get fuel out of homes, it's all heat pumps because they're kind of the only game in town as far as technology to use electricity to produce heat. The problem is the technology, even though it's awesome, the products aren't. So it's great to have the technology. People live every day with products. And there are very few heat pumps in the market that really kind of like inspire consumer excitement and desire. And these are things that you're living, they're literally controlling the comfort of your home. And so this is very, very important because there's an emotional aspect, there's a comfort aspect. So we want to elevate heat pumps and kind of elevate the category to be a coveted category. I think a good analogy here is very similar to space raid. It's actually when Nest did with a thermostat. Right? So the thermostat was this kind of like plain device, also around home HVAC, for decades, and they really elevated it into a whole other category and accelerated energy efficient controlling of older systems, and we're trying to take it to the next step. And actually, Matt Rogers and the co-founders of Nest just recently joined our board of directors. And he was also one of our first investors. So really excited to have him and help you guys do that. Sorry. All right. So we are a ductless heat pump system. I know it's a little jargony. It means that ducts in your house where the air blow around. So it's done to those. You can actually see it. It's right there. So it's up on it goes up the wall in every room. And it does both heating and cooling. So yes, it is an AC. It's also a heater, and it does it electrically. We broke the record for being the most efficient heat pump ever made in our category. So that, we beat the R&D. Thank you. We beat the R&D teams from Mitsubishi and Daikin and all these billion-dollar companies. And we did it by leveraging a lot of really modern technology that, frankly, wasn't making its way into the industry. So there are 4 components of the system. We actually built not 1, not 2, but 3 hardware products in the last 2.5 years. If you've ever done hardware, you know how kind of crazy that is. But we did it. There's 3 distinct products. So there's an indoor unit, there's an outdoor unit, there's a smart thermostat, and then there's a really smart app as well to control it. And it all combines to create this heating and cooling system that, as I mentioned, is the most efficient in the world. That's independently verifiable. It's also the best looking, if I'm going to be totally unbiased. I'm actually not going to talk through all these just in the interest of time. But the kind of headline here is that there's kind of these baseline efficiency scores. Those are the rules, the sort of records you broke. And then we also do a lot of automated occupancy detection that ramps, that saves energy, because you don't need to be heating your living room when you're sleeping, although most people do. And you also can do a lot of smart stuff with weather prediction and things like that. So where we are today, we, as I mentioned, left Google in 2022. One of the first things I did was go find an incredible industrial design team. I know there's 2 people out there called Mike and Micah. They actually, for a while, they designed the first Android phone, and they were brought into Google, and they were and kind of founded the industrial design practice there. They were at X for a while, also as an industrial design team there. Then they went out on their own, so I knew them from that connection. And they're really, really world class, and it's just the 2 of them, and helped create the vision that led to Quilt. So I think I'm going on for too long, so I'm going to just keep moving forward. Yes, we've been installing Bay Area. We're at over 100 homes. We did our first install in October, so it's been ramping it really, really quickly. And actually, just today, we announced that we will be in Los Angeles in a couple weeks, and then spreading up the rest of the West Coast very soon after that. So there we are. We're trying to decarbonize homes, because fuel use in homes is this. There's really only 2 places consumers buy fossil fuels with their own money: the car or their home. And the car side is going pretty well, but it's going to go even better as we hear. And the home side are the other big part of the equation. So if we get both those done, we're going to make a lot of progress.
Hello, everyone. Changing gears slightly, who here is already an enormous fan of seaweed? Show of hands. Every single person. Perfect. Besides Ray, who's already deeply familiar with the plastics kind of emerging in these? Yeah. Okay, so fewer. Great. Really happy to be here. There's some stars in this room. Veronique, oh my God, great work. I'm very grateful to be here. Sway is focused on flexible films. There are 5 trillion bags, wrappers, and pouches produced every year. Less than 3% of them are recycled. So the vast majority of flexible plastics end up in landfill, as we heard a little bit about, or they float into our natural spaces. If it's not earplugs, it's probably a Snickers wrapper you're always seeing on the sidewalk, or they end up in nature and in our oceans, where they last forever and then make their way back into our bodies. So flexible plastics, big challenge. Reuse and reduction efforts can totally work for this category of plastic, but they can't tackle 5 trillion bags, wrappers, and pouches. And so we're looking to broaden the palette of materials that can be used to replace that category of packaging. And seaweed, I believe, is the most generous, abundant feedstock of the future to do this job. Seaweed grows on every coastline in the world. It can be responsibly farmed in the ocean, where you don't need fresh water, you don't need land, you don't need fertilizer. Everyone here knows about seaweed, so maybe I don't need to say so. But what I love especially about seaweed is that it's very diverse. So you've got reds, browns, greens. They contain natural polymers. This is like the gelling quality that makes seaweed so stretchy on the beach. And many folks don't know there's like this underground industry of seaweed. Seaweed is in your everyday. It's in your toothpaste. It's in your skincare. It's in your beer. It might be in your coffee. we're able to tap into this industry and use the natural polymers, those powders on the left-hand side, and use them as the foundation of our new materials. To beat plastic, you have to work within the system that already exists. And if you want to work in that system, you need to make a pellet. And so for the last 4 years, the Sway team has been designing around using seaweed to create a pellet that could be compostable, but also compatible with the most scaled manufacturing on Earth, which is blown film extrusion. Is anyone familiar with blown film extrusion? Amazing. Make big bubble. I will show you later. This is so hard to do. I can't express to you how hard this is. There were many times when our team was like, Julia, this actually might not be possible. But we persisted with ruthless optimism. And last year, we launched for the first time our patented technology. We call it thermoplastic seaweed, or TPC for short. So this is a 100% bio-based, mostly seaweed-based pellet that melts and flows in traditional plastic infrastructure. And it can be extruded into products on its own, or you can blend it together with all different kinds of compostable polymers to create lots of different products. And the first one that we're on track to commercializing is called TPC Flex, which is a flexible, durable, moisture-resistant film produced on traditional plastic equipment. And what you're looking at was like so hard to do. So what you're seeing is a traditional plastic manufacturing plant in the Midwest extruding our seaweed polymers into pellets, basically through this very standard process. And then those pellets are being melted down and blown into a 5-story tall giant bubble. And then that bubble is being rolled into sheets of film, converted into bags, and actually is now in the market with real brands that you love. Really hard to do, if I said that already.
Waste Management's our first ever commercial customer, and they have 15,000 pickup trucks that can no longer fit in their job. Their job is to grab a garbage bin at an underground parking lot, bring it to the street side, so the big garbage bins can go offload them, and they can't fit under that 6'6" clearance or make a left-hand turn to go into these parking lots anymore with the new trucks that exist. And when the Air Force tried to evaluate electric trucks, because they wanted the ability to have battery banks out in the middle of nowhere, when they brought those trucks back to their sites, they couldn't actually charge them because there was just too much energy that they required overnight. So all these problems make it so electric pickup trucks don't really work in hard-to-reach areas. So that's where we fundamentally commit, is a new category of electric vehicles, a crew cab pickup truck packaged into the footprint of a two-door Mini Cooper. And we do this through two major innovations. One on the battery side, we have the battery pack that's 50% more space efficient than Tesla's battery pack. And we rethink crash safety because we don't have a big engine in front of our vehicle. We can optimize the front of the vehicle entirely for frontal crash impact. And doing so, it only requires a 14-inch hood to get a 5-star crash rating that might even afford football. But so really, coming back to this, like, hardware companies don't have to necessarily be hard if you can be quick and agile in many ways. So we've gotten 2 vehicles on the road, one of which is out front. We developed proprietary technology to go after this market. And we really de-risked the 2 things that prevent vehicles from coming to market. And we are actually going to start shipping vehicles at the end of next year as well. So thank you.
Yes, so I hope you understand how privileged we are today to have this group of innovators in front of us. I'm going to start maybe with questions for Lauryn and Julia, because you're designer and we talk a lot about the process of creating desire for solution. We're not designer for most of us. What's happening in those rooms when you start with a blank page? How do you do that? How do you think about designing a solution that's not just going to be better, but also desirable? And maybe, Paul, if you want to pass your mic to Lauryn, I'll start with you and then you get to Julia.
All right. So before I started GOB, I was running a design agency, an industrial design agency called Prowl, which is still active and still functioning here in the city. And the whole ethos behind that was begin with the end. So I spent my career working in furniture, fashion, and footwear. I worked for companies like Nike, Herman Miller, Target, BMW, lots of companies that produce at scale. And I recognized that there is a lack of visibility in or thinking about the end of a product's life at the conception phase. And there's really no reason not to, other than the fact that there was no requirement, right? So it was always like a second, third, fourth thought. So our design process was adopted from that way of thinking. So for God, we did not land on a cylinder on purpose. I did everything as a designer to not make a cylinder. And then I ended up making a cylinder. So that's what happened. But because it works. But really the way that our design process functions is we think about the end of a product's life, what its function needs to be, what it might look like for someone to be done with it, and then we work backwards from that. That helps you choose the material, that helps you choose the shape, that helps you make a bunch of really functional decisions. And so that might sound not so sexy, but constraints are a designer's best friend. So it's been very helpful.
Also had a career as a designer prior to starting this company, working in packaging. And my co-founder Leland had this phrase. He would always tell me, we need to make the future so desirable that it becomes inevitable. And I like the idea that if you bake in all this goodness into materials, you make them incredibly desirable and thus inevitable. So with seaweed specifically, we were thinking about how many boxes can we check for the designer, for the procurement person, for the CFO, for the CEO, to make everyone feel really good about these materials that are a part of our everyday. And seaweed checks those boxes. It makes you feel good about the environment, performance, biodegradability. It's super scalable. It's super accessible. It works. So yeah, I think about how many boxes can we possibly check to make these solutions kind of inevitable or an obvious choice.
Amazing. And I know many of you are not designers and maybe intimidated sometimes to have that conversation. I remember, Jason, you mentioned like it's hard because it's your baby, but if you bring a designer in your team, like the famous Eve, it's kind of hard, but it's also a thing you have to do. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like also with you, Paul, I would love to touch on how do you bring design in your organization? Is it if you start with a more technical DNA, and what are the things we need to anticipate?
Yeah, so me and my co-founder are both like hardcore engineers at heart. And we started on graph paper with, pen and paper and said, what would it take? What are the first principles of physics to build the smallest footprint vehicle we can that meets these fundamental requirements, meets crash safety, meets packaging requirements, meets we were designing three-dimensional movement of the wheels, and we ended up with this kind of like box. We said, here's the constraint we could work within. And we, of course, tried to sketch a truck inside of those constraints, and we both looked at each other and went, wow, we're really bad at this. This thing, no one would want this thing. Looks like a badly designed UTV. And so Forrest goes, well, I worked with a designer in the past. I launched Mission Motors, my co-founder launched Mission Motors with Bahar back in TED in 2009. He was on stage at the same time that Bill Gates released Mosquito into the audience with, what was it? It was Zika, I think. Malaria. It was malaria. This mosquito has malaria. Here you go. So he was on stage at the same time as that. But so he had this relationship with Eve, and he called up Eve, who was off in the middle of the Amazon rainforest or something, doing something, and said, hey, I got this crazy idea. I want to build a mini truck with the same capabilities as a Tacoma, the footprint of the Mini Cooper. And he goes, not possible. I go, no, we proved it's possible, but you can't make it look good. And he goes, well, I can do that. And so when we brought it in, we gave him, like you said, constraints are a designer's best friend. We gave him very, very specific constraints. This is where the wheels go. This is where the passengers go. This is how the doors open. This is how crash safety works. And said, figured out within that window. And that's proven that they really appreciated having those really firm constraints, because that made it so there was really very much like the iconic things to work within. I think most people hire designers in the automotive world to spend tens of millions of dollars to bring a product to market, but when you define constraints like that, I think it streamlines the effort significantly.
Amazing. Oh, you work with Mike and Mike, huh?
Yeah.
How was the process?
I mean, among other great designers. So I'll say I think it's interesting because you're a hardcore engineer. That's with the kind of start with the prove it's possible, here are the constraints. I'm a product manager by background. And so when I was at Google, I was always a PM, and part of your job is to sort of sit between engineering and design and steer the product overall. And I have had the privilege of working with a lot of really, really talented designers across my career and see the power that a product can have when it's been thoughtfully designed. And I also think the role of a product manager, or what my role is in this, is almost like the beginning of the design process, which is defining what problems we're trying to solve, who the customer is, what are kind of the overall value propositions you want to accomplish.
And then also surveying the end customer. Did you like the way that it felt? Did you care that it was made from seaweed? And that positive validation allows us to innovate further, but also kind of confirms our theory around, yes, people care about packaging. They want it to align with the value set of the clothing they're wearing too.
I also feel like climate today, we're going to win if we find the right partnerships. And sometimes it's even partnering with some of the most traditional industries that have been damaging or not the environment. But this is how we scale. And I wanted to hear, I know many of you have really interesting partnership, whether it's manufacturing on the Telo side, with Eco and Clothes, people have been doing packaging for a long time. I'm not going to speak Korean, but how does a startup come and pitch a very big traditional partner? Any tips you can give for people in the audience who may think about their business and want a partner, but not sure what's the right entry point and how you create the playbook?
Start with this. Actually, it's very timely. You just announced today our partner program on our channel side, so on the go-to-market side. So we go to market by partnering with traditional HVAC contractors, some more modern heat pump installers, but bread and butter is the traditional HVAC contractor. And, that's a group that in general skews, let's say, a lot more conservative than your typical Silicon Valley room like this, and has a different set of motivations. But at the end of the day, they are people who generally are small business owners. So these are massive companies, some are, but and they want to generally, they take a lot of pride in their work. So it's a really understanding the psychology of what gets them the tech. They're not, installing furnaces because they're trying to harm the planet. They're doing it because it's what the customers want, and it's what they have on the back of their truck, and it's the thing they get at the lowest price. So it's good for their business, it's good for their customers, and they're going to do what is going to make their business succeed. So as we go to them and we think about value propositions to get them excited to install our products, we have to understand what motivates them. And one of the things that really motivates them is giving them differentiation. So the fact that most of the products in the market all look the same, it means that when they're selling to a homeowner and the next person's going to walk in, they're all going to offer the same thing, so they don't have any real differentiation. So we could offer them real differentiation, and that has been a big lever for us. Another thing is we show sort of a willingness to pay, because people will pay for the design and the quality, and we have a very high quality customer base. The people interested in our products are the type of people most brands would want to have as customers. And so these are the things we emphasize. We don't emphasize save the planet. There are a few heat pump focused installers, but that's not what our message with them. And on the manufacturing side, it's kind of a similar thing. And one more thing I'll say on partnerships, we found that actually matching the size we have two manufacturing partners. One is really big, like huge, like one of the biggest manufacturers in the world. They're Apple's sector, their third biggest supplier. And the other one is more our size. We actually found it's easier to work with one that's closer to our size because you're a bigger deal to them if you succeed. So they're more invested in your success. And so even though it's sometimes really attractive to go get the big fish, we've actually had a lot more success finding with just like one step of a fish bigger, not 20 steps bigger.
Our sweet spot has been privately held plastic or packaging companies. We did a kind of audition process where we approached a lot of traditional plastic manufacturers, and a lot of them laughed us out the room and said, "You're just some kids from Berkeley with your seaweed product. I'm not going to run your stuff on my machines." But then the ones who did saw it work, and then their eyes lit up, and they thought, "I've been in plastics for 40 years, but wait a second, this works. Now I'm a part of the movement." So I feel like it was finding the folks who kind of got it and were mission aligned, and definitely also a point of differentiation for them. So we're partnered with one of the largest plastic manufacturers in the United States to manufacture product. And then we've also been able to partner with traditional packaging distributors who see Sway as a point of differentiation and have experience working with other bio-based materials. But it's really coming from the top. It's buy-in from the president or the CEO who says, "I feel responsible for future generations. I know plastic better than anybody. I have to be a part of the solution." They've become our biggest champions.
It's a strange time in automotive right now. So with that said, it's kind of this really unique opportunity for us as an early stage startup where you would have never thought some of these massive names in the automotive supply chain and manufacturing facilities and things are just calling us because major automotive OEMs are shutting their doors. They're pausing all development. They're pausing all cross-border shipments. So we've been offered floor space at Stellantis manufacturing plants for next to nothing. So that to say, like it's I don't think that's going to persist, and I don't think overall this situation's good for the automotive sector. But I don't think, I think my kind of perspective on this is a little warped given the current situation at hand.
We have to talk about that, right? Okay, so anyway, I'll just ask Paul because he has a very positive outlook on it. No, but more seriously, obviously tariff policies, everything is changing overnight. It's hard, and I'm curious if there's any learning or things that you can share how you're adapting to that. Even if it's just meditation, I'll take it. Just curious how you think about your supply chain, your partnership.
I can go first. So we're a brand new company. We're actually just like about to raise our seed round. That's how early we are. And we have the ability to manufacture in very small spaces. So we are piloting with a pharmaceutical company in France. As of a couple of weeks ago, the plan was to ship directly from one of our New York facilities to Europe and expand throughout Europe. We're now shifting gears to manufacture in Europe to avoid any of that situation. I actually see that as a positive, larger story in a way, because it allows us to minimize our transportation costs, and it also allows us to minimize our carbon footprint. But at the end of the day, I will just air it out. I'm a little frustrated as an American-made company that even some of the things that I'm sourcing, like packaging, it's very limiting, right? So actually in the past couple of weeks, our brand new partnerships with some of our vendors overseas, we've had to pivot. And so I've been in the thick of that the last couple of weeks, I'm not going to lie. But I will say that from what I've found, our partners are very willing to work with us if you talk long term. So as a startup, you go to these manufacturers and they say, oh, yeah, sure, like you won't be able to handle our MOQs or any of that. But when you show that you have traction, they're willing to listen. So luckily, we got really lucky where we had traction right before this happened, right? So what we're doing is we're actually taking more of a micro-manufacturing global approach now, which has actually been pretty positive thus far. We're only a couple weeks in to that. So we'll see how it goes. I'll tell you next year during Climate Week. But
We do carbon accounting too.
yeah, I will also note though, like California has been very kind to us. And being here on the West Coast, I do see a different spirit, and I'm very proud to be. I'm from New York, but I'm very proud to be in California right now because I've been able to source a lot of our supplies, our vending machines, and things like that, actually from California. So that was a bit of another spray of information, but that's just where I'm at.
And people know I didn't make up the green machine. It exists. Okay.
Yeah. You'll be able to see our product in very bright lime green vending machines in venues across New York this summer, and then we're rolling out nationwide with AEG, which is very exciting.
I'm trying to remember what it is that I said that you remember, but
I know you were not afraid of tackling the topic because I assume your supply chain has also connection with Asia.
For sure. Yeah, I don't remember what it is I said, but I will just say it again, my opinion on it. So I mean, in the near term, we have impact. I think probably we all, I can't speak for you, but I suspect you have, I suspect most of us have some impact on this. If it's not first order effect, it's a second order effect. So two things. I actually think that even though this is like a near term challenge, if it does force a little bit more diversity in manufacturing across the world, it could actually be in the medium to long term a good thing. I think we'd actually all benefit by having more options where things can be made. Certainly, I think it's the same vein of what you were saying. I mean, I would love to manufacture closer to home for environmental reasons, for development reasons, for all these things. And we went to where the expertise was because it was all concentrated in one place. But I actually think that in the near run, as complicated as it is, and I think we're all fitting the paying, a more diversified global manufacturing base is actually good for everyone. And also, we have some flexibility, I think similar to you, where on the market side. So like a tariff is a tax between a supplier and a buyer, right? So you can change either one of those. You can change where you produce, you also change where you sell. And like, for example, we have a large backlog in Canada. And so, you go maybe sell products in Canada while you sort of wait for the situation to resolve in the US. Again, I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm exactly saying the right thing, but I mean, one other thing is, and this is not a positive thing, but it's ultimately just a tax on consumers, because the whole industry is going to raise prices, because especially these large companies, like, you can't just take the hit to your margin, right? Like, especially for an established company. So it just turns directly into inflation, and it's just kind of ends up being a sales tax that's just a little bit hidden, but it's effectively a sales tax, which maybe gives an individual company some comfort because you're not singled out, but it's obviously not good.
Yeah, I think the whole changes are forcing us, whether it's on the marketing side, to pivot a little bit some of the messaging and remove some words. I think what gives me a lot of confidence is the startups we're seeing today. You obviously, this group, scale-ups in any industry, this notion about techno-economics, it's been about building solutions that have the right economics, that were not depending on incentives, and that have a story that touches people. So as we said, and as we saw with each of you, storytelling is a big part, but I'm curious, like, where do you lean these days and how are you telling the story? Can you just leave the veil a little about your process?
Yeah, I used to always talk about how we're the next big EV kind of movement, and this is how EV should be created in the future. Now, my message just kind of removed the EV from the story pretty heavily, because I feel that there's a lot of political backlash on the term of EVs. People feel forced, mandated to move to EVs, which we all know isn't a real thing. But in reality, made us think personally, like, what are we really doing? Well, it's not that we're an EV company. It's that we're a mini truck company that, well, you can only build a mini truck if you also make it electric. But fundamentally, what we're pitching is this mini truck ideal. And when we changed that narrative, we actually surveyed kind of the new customers that came in through our pre-order network, and found that over a quarter of them were registered conservatives, or purchasing an electric vehicle, and writing to us like, I'm getting rid of my truck, and we went to own a truck, and it was just effective marketing.
We work with a lot of traditional plastic manufacturers, as I've mentioned, so our storytelling has remained somewhat consistent, but we definitely lean into do what's right for future generations. Like, I think generally most people don't like plastic and generally know that we need to diversify or move away from it. So just like planetary responsibility might have been where we were focused before, but now it's very much about future generations, and resource efficiency, and waste costs money, and that kind of narrative we're definitely leaning into.
We're fortunate in that what we do is just a fundamental need. Like, humans need mechanical heating and cooling in buildings. 99% of all buildings have it. We've been using artificial means to heat our buildings since we were in caves, like literally fires. So by being the most efficient system and a required space, we don't have to sort of talk about the climate side. We can almost be a Trojan horse in that sense. So we just be the most efficient way to cool your house. And by the way, if you're living in a hot place, you need to cool your house. We could be the most efficient way to heat your house. So we do focus on that. And so the energy efficiency, energy independence, the value increase that people see in their homes when they have these types of systems. Comfort is universal. Nobody likes sweating in their sheets in their bed in the summer, and they're just these fundamental things that we're able to focus on. And so I think we're a little bit fortunate that way. So that's what we emphasize.
Well, you all saw my last slide. It's like we're not leaning 100% to the sustainability story. Like we say, we can't protect you from yourself, but we can protect your blank. And right now it's hearing. You can imagine what else you fill that blank in with. But for me, I come from the industrial design agency side of things, and so I helped companies before starting this one tell stories about more responsible goods, and what we've found is that just having a sustainable story doesn't move the needle. It's unfortunate, but it's true. I find myself, if I'm really being honest with myself, also looking for, well, what is the other benefit, right, when I'm shopping for things. And so the way that we're approaching this is, yes, the sustainable purchaser will probably lean into that, sure. But what I'm more interested in is taking a cultural approach of leaning into IRL experiences and truly understanding where people use our products and then using humor to sell. So that's our approach, is we really lean into humor. a lot.
I would say follow all these four on LinkedIn, because there's also, I think you've been very transparent and very communicative on LinkedIn. I could ask them 200 more questions about their tactics, but we're out of time, unfortunately. So there's a lot more online about each of these incredible stories, but please help me thank them for this fabulous film.